WWE stars, it could be said, are a mixture of athlete, actor, and stuntman. And while every move and bump can be considered a stunt in its own unique way, WWE stars are on occasion tasked with performing the sort of actual stunts that would make the cast of Jackass proud. These don't always go according to plan, however, leading to some very close near misses, some very genuine injuries, and on rare occasions, the person performing the stunt coming within a hair of tragedy. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 most dangerous WWE stunts. Join us! Number 10. Playing with fire. WWE stars thrive off heat, but something tells me the vast majority of them wouldn't relish being in matches and segments that involve actual fire. It was Kane who made flames a regular presence on WWE television, the Big Red Machine being involved in many situations over the course of his career where he could have very easily been burned. In a controlled studio setting, like the interview where he set fire to Jim Ross, that risk is obviously minimized. But live and in an arena, things get a bit trickier and altogether less predictable, even when the proper precautions are taken. Kane could have become engulfed at the 1998 Royal Rumble, for example, when he doused a casket in gasoline and set it on fire in the arena entranceway. He was legitimately set ablaze a couple of times in different Inferno matches, then did the same to MVP, something achieved thanks to specially padded ring attire. Of course, these all pale in comparison to Edge spearing Mick Foley through a flaming table at WrestleMania 22, a stunt that went miraculously well considering the risk factor. Number 9. A wheelie bad landing. Poor Zack Ryder was put through the ringer in early 2012. After daring to get over on his own, WWE seemingly punished Long Island IC by having his character endure humiliation after humiliation, like having John Cena steal away Eve, who then turned on Ryder at WrestleMania by kicking him square in the broskies. That said, the creative pain was nothing compared to the very real pain Zack could have suffered when Kane, him again, sent him sailing off the side of the Raw stage. Ryder was sat in a wheelchair following a previous drubbing at the hands of the Devil's favourite demon and was easy pickings. The whole thing probably seemed safe enough when they were talking through it earlier in the day, but in execution it was very sketchy indeed. Being pushed at high speed off the low stage, the internet champion barely had enough time to position himself so that he didn't pulverize his knees and/or ankles. Ryder later revealed that the fall jacked his back up, but it could have been far worse. Number 8. Dumped off the stage. Zack Ryder wasn't the first person to be thrown off a WWE stage, of course, and I would bet all of my stock in social media company Tout that he will not be the last. Ryder's fall was brutal, no doubt, but at least he could see where he was going and was able to protect himself as best he could. Terry Funk and Mick Foley didn't quite have the same luxury when they took a tumble on the February 2nd, 1998 episode of Raw. The hardcore legends were locked into a dumpster by the New Age Outlaws, who teased pushing them harmlessly down the ramp before deciding on total destruction instead. Road Dogg has subsequently assured fans that precautions were taken and that Vince McMahon himself went for an initial ride just to make sure that nobody would get hurt. But still, it could have gone quickly awry when the red light was on. The endless replays, JR's tremendous sell job on commentary, the locker room emptying to check on their co-workers, and the Outlaws explaining themselves to a miffed Vince only added to the general aura of unease afterwards. Number 7. Fangin', bangin', and hangin'. The Ministry of Darkness, what are they like, eh? Abductions, torture, attempted human sacrifices, nothing was out of bounds for The Undertaker and his gang of evil followers. Cheeky little scamps. Put next to some of their more outlandish antics, the Ministry's hanging of Gangrel on the February 1st, 1999 episode of Raw didn't seem particularly OTT or anything. But despite it looking simple enough to pull off, it came close to being catastrophic. The Ministry men were told by WWE's prop ace Richie Posner earlier in the day that the rope they had picked out for the angle wasn't suitable, as it was brand new and would almost certainly cinch up in the moment. Regrettably, they didn't heed his advice, because when they flung the vampire over the top rope with the noose around his neck and pulled back, the rope did just what Posner guessed it would. Gasping for air and rightfully panicking as his life flashed before his eyes, Gangrel managed to give Mideon the Iggy that he was in trouble, with Dennis Knight able to relay the message to the acolytes, who let go just in time. Number 6, an instant GLASSIC. As with Fire, WWE have occasionally used the unpredictable element of glass in angles and matches. We all remember Marty Jannetty going through the barbershop window, the coward, and Shawn Michaels getting a delayed dose of karma when he was introduced to the Geratron 5000 many years later. Unlike Fire, glass is much easier to gimmick, and stunts involving it can be done a lot more safely. Unfortunately for Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon at the 2001 King of the Ring pay-per-view, the WWE props team neglected to get the more forgiving kind of glass for the show's set because they were afraid it would shatter due to the nearby pyrotechnics. The Olympic hero and the boss's son weren't to know as Kurt prepared to suplex Shane through the panes towards the end of their chaotic street fight grudge match. McMahon famously bounced off on the first couple of attempts, the back of his head hitting the concrete floor with a sickening thud. Determined to make sure shards were sent flying, Angle ended up simply flinging him face first instead, resulting in both men needing stitches. Number 5, Big Show breaks the ring. One of the most spectacular stunts WWE can wheel out is when part of the ring breaks. It always gets a reaction because WWE do it pretty sparingly, and there's rarely an indication that it's going to happen. That said, Big Show climbing to the top rope might have been a bit of a giveaway since he was involved in 3 full-on ring breaks. The first time was when the world's largest athlete battled Brock Lesnar for the WWE title on the June 12, 2003 episode of SmackDown. Show was going for a super chokeslam when the next big thing countered into a superplex, resulting in ropes snapping, boards bending, and the match being declared a no contest. It was done perfectly, thanks to the ring being raised slightly and airbags placed underneath it, but any number of things could have gone wrong and led to a bad injury. WWE repeated the spot on 2 further occasions when Show collided with Mark Henry and Braun Strowman. Visually stunning, a good old-fashioned ring break requires planning and precision, and a couple of big beefy boys to make it realistic. Number 4, Rey Mysterio's Backlash Whiplash. Alright, so we've established that Big Show is really big. Big enough to break the ring on 3 separate occasions even. You know who's not so big? Andrew Hodgkinson and Rey Mysterio, WWE's so-called biggest little man who found himself booked against the 500-pounder in a giant mismatch at Backlash 2003. It went about as well as expected for Mysterio, with little Rey succumbing to a chokeslam and then being placed on a backboard in preparation for being stretchered out. In a shocking scene, Show came back, grabbed the prone Mysterio, and swung him like a baseball bat into the ring post. Rey hit hard and dropped to the floor, breaking his fall with his face. The post-match angle was done to write the cruiserweight off television for a few weeks, but almost ended up putting him on the shelf for far longer. Though he wasn't seriously injured, he did reportedly have a big bump on his forehead as well as a sprained thumb and wrist. He was also, quite understandably, badly shaken up after and vowed to never again be strapped to a stretcher and swung like a baseball bat into a ring post. Smart. Number 3, Shane falls off the TITANTRON multiple times. No member of the McMahon family had to do the crazy things they did on television. They didn't have to get beaten up or embarrassed, but they did it anyway because they are entertainers at heart. Shane McMahon certainly didn't have to put his life on the line over and over again by either falling or jumping from great heights. Shano's first breathtaking fall came at SummerSlam 2000 when he scaled the side of the set while being pursued by Steve Blackman and took a backwards plunge from about 30 feet up. Yes, the landing was cushioned, but that's still a hell of a distance, and Shane had to make sure that he controlled his body and landed perfectly, which he did. And hell, if it worked so well the first time, why not do it 2 more times? Shane dropped a huge elbow on Big Show at Backlash 2001 and then attempted the same on Kane at Unforgiven 2003, which missed. Undeterred by advancing age or the long layoff since his last match, Shane flung himself off the side of the cell in his WrestleMania 32 comeback match with The Undertaker. And that, as well as a legitimate tournament victory, is why he's considered the best wrestler in the world. Number 2, the grandest spear of them all. The Hardys, Dudleys, and Edge and Christian continually raise the bar in their table, ladder, and TLC matches to the point that a 50-footer wouldn't have come close to reaching it. The bar, that is. They must have been feeling the pressure to top their own lofty efforts when WWE booked the sequel to TLC at the historic WrestleMania X7, yet with their combined willpower were able to somehow inch that bar just a little bit higher. In a match filled with spectacular bumps and stunts, the trio of tag teams reserved the biggest and best of the bunch for close to the end. Edge and Jeff Hardy had done a spot where Edge speared Jeff off a ladder, usually by jumping from the top rope a couple of times before, but they decided to take things to another level at Mania. With the charismatic Enigma hanging from the hook that held the titles in place, the Rated R superstar jumped off the top of a massive ladder and sent him a long way down to the mat below. The timing had to be absolutely spot on to make sure that both the giver and receiver didn't end up getting poleaxed on the grandest stage. Number 1, broken in half. Perhaps no WWE star in history has suffered for their art more than Mick Foley. Mrs. Foley's baby boy routinely took all manner of heavy-duty bumps, any one of which could have ended his career, and probably would have ended the careers of anyone else bonkers enough to try them. For all the unbelievable spills that Saint Mick took before and during his WWE career, two live longest in the memory. Realizing that his King of the Ring 1998 Hell in a Cell showdown with The Undertaker, who was going into the match with an injured ankle, didn't have the strongest build, and that the first Cell match between the Dead Man and Shawn Michaels had set the bar extremely high, Foley took things into his own hands to make sure it lived up to expectations, and then some. First, he seemingly floated off the top and through the announce table at ringside. Then he climbed back up and was chokeslammed through the top of the cage, a steel chair falling with Foley and cracking him square in the face, in some sort of sadistic cosmic joke. Still one of the damnedest things in wrestling history.